Okay, Bronze Medal Moms, before we get into today's topic, we need a moment. Yay! This is our 50th episode of Bronze Medal Moms. Oh my gosh.
I cannot believe it.
I know. Although honestly, it feels like we should have our lives more together by now, but here we are.
And it feels very on brand that for this milestone episode, we're talking about something that humbles basically every mom at some point: breastfeeding. Because nothing, and we mean nothing, will make you question yourself faster than trying to feed your baby and wondering why it's not going the way you thought it would.
Oh yes, so today we're joined by lactation consultant Callie Counterman with Mooch Lactation, and we're having the conversation we wish we had had as new moms. The real one, the one about when it hurts, when it's hard, when it doesn't work, and how quickly the guilt and the pressure can sneak in and make you feel like you're somehow getting it wrong.
Whether you breastfed for 2 years, 2 weeks, not at all, this episode is for you. There are no gold stars. There's no judgment, just honest, supportive conversation, because around here, bronze still shines. Let's get into it.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Bronze Medal Moms, the podcast where we aren't going for gold, we're going for bronze on the daily. I'm Amy.
And I'm Amanda, and we are here to remind you that you don't have to be perfect to show up, survive, and even thrive in motherhood. Welcome back to Bronze Medal Moms, where we are not going for gold. We are just trying to keep everyone alive.
Yes. And this week, we're talking about one of the most emotional, exhausting, beautiful, stressful, fulfilling, did we say exhausting, seasons of early motherhood, and that is breastfeeding.
And before we go any further, let's just say clearly, fed is best, period. However you feed your baby, breastfeeding, pumping, formula, combo, you're doing a good job, mom. Just feed the baby, keep them alive.
Yes. But breastfeeding, it is its own journey. Our listeners have heard me say it's the hardest, most amazing thing I've ever done. And sometimes it feels like you're handed a baby with zero instructions and everyone says, oh, it's natural, you'll figure it out, while you're Googling, sore nipples at 2 a.m.
So naturally, we brought in an expert because Bronze Medal Moms believe in calling in the backup.
Yep. Today, we are joined by Callie, a lactation specialist and founder of Mooch Lactation Company, who is helping moms feel confident and supported in those early days.
And she just happens to be one of my incredible, beautiful mom friends as well. So welcome, Callie.
Yay, welcome. So I have to share really quick with you, Callie, my personal story because...
Oh, I've given Callie some background about you.
Well, because I already know you are a rock star, because I tell everyone, my daughter's 12 now, but I still tell people that a lactation consultant saved the relationship with my baby and breastfeeding because... I read the book. In fact, it's a book I still get for moms that are expecting, this breastfeeding book. So I knew that it didn't come naturally to some women. I knew about cluster feeding and I knew all of the things. I took the class. I get to the hospital. They were terrible. They were awful. In fact, I had a hard time.
Callie's like, yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had a hard time latching. She was teeny tiny. My boobs were humongous. And the only thing the nurse kept saying and asking until my husband had to kick her out of the room was, why did you get implants? Why did you get implants? And Steve, my husband's like, that has nothing to do with helping her breastfeed. So when I left the hospital, I was bleeding. I had plastic cups under my shirt. And I got home and, the hormones are raging anyway. And I told my husband, I said, I need 24 hours to heal or I'm never going to breastfeed again. This is awful. Go find formula. And when he found formula, he also found a lactation consultant who came to my house the next morning at 7 a.m. and was an angel. So I mean, it saved our relationship. It took us 6 months to figure it out. We ended up nursing for 5 years. But I would love to know. Wow. It takes such a special person. I would love to know, how did you become a lactation specialist? Was it something you always wanted? Did motherhood lead you here? How did you go into this?
I feel like that journey is super common. First of all, like to struggle in the beginning, come home, everybody's bleeding and crying. So while it can feel like isolating, it's super normal and common. I got into it because I was a stay-at-home mom. I was super bored. My husband at the time was like, you have $50 a month to spend however you want. And that's on coffee dates with your bestie or dinner dates or clothes or what have you. And so I quickly realized that $50 is an irrational amount of money to last a whole month. So I was like, I'm going to take a part-time job. And so I did at a hospital here in Austin, and it was great. And I found myself like trailing around behind the lactation consultant, just kind of like randomly. I was a newborn hearing screener. So while I was in the room working with the newborns, the lactation consultants would come in and like leave that room, and that mom felt empowered and educated and confident. And after a couple of sessions of like just being a fly on the wall, I like felt it in my heart that I wanted to do that. So I came home and told my husband, I was like, okay, I'm going back to school. I'm going to become a lactation consultant. And he was like, no, we just had a baby. You're not going back to school.
He's like, $50 a month. That's all you had. Why does that get school?
After we like really sat down and talked about it, he was like, okay, let's do it. And so back to school in 2017 and sat for my board certification in 2021. And I've been at it ever since. So
that is so amazing. And it's just, it is true. Like Amy said, so many moms don't get the care that they really need in the hospital. And I will say, honestly, I don't know. I really feel like hormones are raging in the hospital that I'm just not ready to talk about it. Like hormone wise, when then they come in the room and they're like, do you want to talk about breastfeeding? I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm barely producing anything. Nothing's going on. And like, it's really going home and like getting yourself settled and realizing like, okay, this is life. I'm here. I want to learn how to breastfeed. And that's fine. Like it's having someone come in and really helping you is such a gift to have that.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, like, do the best you can in the hospital setting, because that's honestly all you can do. Like, you're in a diaper, you're bleeding from multiple places, your baby's hysterical, your husband's asleep on the couch and is absolutely worthless. Like, you're fighting for your life in there, and then someone's knocking at the door every 30 minutes. Like, how am I ever going to establish breastfeeding in this environment? So I always like to say, like, do the best you can in the hospital setting. When we get home, we'll be able to use all the tools, all the things you registered for. We'll be able to get back to your breastfeeding plan, establish something that serves you for the coming weeks. But it's definitely not, the hospital setting is not conducive to starting a breastfeeding journey. That is for sure.
Yeah. No, I will say that. And I actually, so I was not able to breastfeed Rue. I tried like the Dickens, but I really think it ended up being a gut health issue that I wasn't able to breastfeed her. We did have a lactation consultant, and first baby, we went to a lactation consultant, and I still remember my husband just staring in the room. And I was like, what's wrong? Like, you look weird. What are you doing? And he's like, you just have your top off, and there's people in the room and they're all messing with you. And those are supposed to be mine, and everyone else is fair game. It was just
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, pretty much my body's just anyone's now after you've had a baby.
Oh, yeah. I spent the first at least 48 hours in a robe that was wide open. And I remember my parents were here from Ohio, and my dad walks in and he's like, oh my goodness, what is this, National Geographic? I was like, they're bleeding and they hurt. He's like, I'm going to go mow the grass. But let's maybe pretend we're talking to a brand new mom. They may even still be pregnant. Maybe they have a 1-day-old baby. Like, I didn't get a lactation consultant. I didn't even think about it because I assumed the hospital would have one. I didn't think about it until it was like, that emergency on-call number. What would you say, though? Like, what did you wish every new mom knew before starting breastfeeding? And is it something like, should they already reach out to a lactation consultant and like already have you on standby? Or what is something you wish every new mom knew before starting?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That is a good one. I think culturally, especially in the United States, we always, I feel like, do first and learn second, right? Like, have the baby, and then we'll figure out how to feed it. Well, everywhere else in the world, prenatal education is like a huge component of pregnancy. And as soon as you're pregnant, you're taking not just birthing classes, but breastfeeding classes. Like the birthing process is a very tiny part of motherhood journey
Yeah.
where breastfeeding could go on for years to come. I think once we as a society normalize prenatal care, which looks like time off work to go to prenatal classes, that sort of thing, I think that's kind of where we'll see the dynamic shift and people choosing to breastfeed or choosing to formula feed out of like an educated standpoint, not out of fear. So the main thing I usually promote to my moms when they reach out is to get a prenatal class. Like, let's pair up. I'll come over. We'll go through all the wonderful things that you registered for that you have no idea if you need or how to use.
Yep.
Let's talk about latching and positioning and how to be successful in those first few like hours and days. It's kind of like a study guide, right, for an exam. It doesn't mean, and if you read it cover to cover, that you're going to ace the exam, but at least you have the tools you need to be successful. And I feel like that in and of itself takes out some of that like fear. I hear a lot of moms say, I'm going to try to breastfeed, but if I can't, then I'll just formula feed. But it's like, well, let's know how to breastfeed, because 9 times out of 10, we can if you want to.
Right.
And then once you kind of learn the tools that you need, then you get to decide if you want to breastfeed, because most of the time we can, but do you want to? And if you don't, that's okay too.
Right.
Which I think it's also like, don't you think that's a generational thing too? Like my mom, I'm born in the 80s. My mom didn't breastfeed and like had no desire to either of her kids. She had a 77 and an 81 baby.
Yeah.
And I think that now, what is the stat? You know, I looked up stats. I love stats.
Oh, yeah. You
So
do.
now, apparently, 84% of women in the U.S. start breastfeeding, and then it significantly drops to 56% at 6 months and then 40% at 12 months. And I will say, and like I said, I wasn't able to breastfeed Rue, and I really think that was a gut health issue that I just didn't produce milk, because then with both boys, I was like Mother Earth. It was no problem. And I just think my body wasn't healthy enough to do it at the time. But I only made it 10 months with both boys, but I felt like that was fine.
That's
like,
a long
yeah, you're
time.
good.
That's still a long time. And I think what you said, that a lot of moms say, well, I'm going to try it, but if I can't, I'm going to formula feed, which is fine. But I think, at least with me and what I learned, is that, okay, most of us aren't going to be able to, because it's not natural.
It's not natural.
You hear it's natural.
It is natural, but it's not realistic.
Right. But there are so many things that you don't know. I think you need to, like you said, be able to educate yourself and try those before you make the decision that you can't do it.
And I really like that you just said you don't have to get an A on the exam. I mean, that's bronze medal mom talk right there.
Yeah.
D+ work at breastfeeding is still feeding that kid.
Yeah. Because I think
it's not an all or nothing thing. Just like you said, like, I only made it 10 months. It's like, no, you made it 10 months.
Yeah, that's
feeding a baby with your breast. Like, it's not all or nothing. It doesn't mean that, oh, because I didn't make it to 2 years or to 12 months or whatever. It's like any amount of breast milk is so crucial for that baby's nervous system, GI tract, immunity. Like, it's some of our moms will breastfeed for 2 weeks and be like, okay, that was really hard and I'm done and I'm fine with that. It's like that's still a really great effort. Like, you did it for 2 whole weeks. And so it's not an all or nothing. I hate that society like has a stigma. It's like, well, if you don't go extended or whatever, then you're like not as good of a breastfeeder as so and so. It's like, no, every baby's different and any breast milk is worthwhile.
Yeah. And every mom's different. And something we don't talk enough about is like how emotional breastfeeding can be. I mean, just the process itself, and then you lay on like the pressure and then the guilt and then the hormones and the exhaustion and the comparison. So, and I feel like that's not something moms are prepared for either.
No. First of all, just the hormones and protecting your mental health. If breastfeeding isn't going the way that it's expected, like there's pressure and guilt from, I'm not doing it right, I'm not doing it enough, I'm not doing this enough. And I will say, I don't feel like the husbands really know either. I love that you brought up prenatal training. I didn't even think that there are classes you could take about breastfeeding before you have a baby. That's genius.
Well, we had to take the hospital class but it was so generic. And like Steve and I went
Took a hospital tour.
well, we went to the birthing class. I remember we sat in a
Take a class.
Oh yeah, it was a birthing class that the hospital required. And we all sat in a circle with a whole bunch of other expecting moms, and but it didn't really teach you anything you wanted to know. And what's funny though is the one who taught it was who seemed great during the class was the awful one that we actually got in the hospital.
Oh, really? She was the one that was so bad that you were like, no, bring me my lactation consultant right now.
Yeah, she was the lactation consultant for the hospital.
So, okay, this is a question, for husbands, partners, moms, friends, like, if you're not the one physically breastfeeding, in your opinion, how can someone support a mom during this stage? Like, we're talking about the emotional side of it and all that. Like, how can they support someone while going through this? If I feel like this proper, like, pre-training is genius, but if no one's done this pre-training, no one really does. I mean, no one knows what to expect at all with the first baby anyway,
Yeah, I mean, even if we're doing our prenatal consults and like doing all the things until your boots on the ground, like fighting for your life in there, it's hard to even like apply what you've learned. And so a lot of the time we have a lot of supportive partners, surprisingly, out there. Because I'm always like, I'll walk in and the dad's sleeping on the couch and the mom's like in the kitchen doing all the things, and it makes me irrationally angry. Like, get up.
Yeah.
But there are as many of those dads and partners as there are. There's some really supportive ones. And I will get like late night texts and say, I think my partner's struggling. What can I do? So I'm always like, keep her fed, like make her a snack pack and keep it on her pumping part. So that anytime she sits down to pump, she has her favorite snacks that are like high in calories and protein, or get her a new Yeti with like a cool personalized something on there, and like keep her hydrated, help her find things that make her feel good, offer to hold the baby while she goes and takes a hot bath. Like treat her to a nice pair of pajamas, anything that like nurtures that mom and helps her realize that there's still like a woman in there and she's not just this like milk cow.
Yeah. Exactly. Because that's what you feel like is a machine.
And especially if you're pumping, like that's a whole nother journey that like takes some of that like lovey-dovey out of it, and it makes it more like routine and mechanical, which separates that like happiness and produces stress. And so when we get in that kind of environment, I always like to try to encourage the partner, like keep an eye on your wife, and like here's some easy, tangible things you could do that don't cost anything, but that can really help her like overall mental health.
Yeah.
And I remember, it's funny you say that. I only breastfed at night, like if they woke up in the middle of the night, and then I would pump during the day because it stressed me out so much to not know what they were getting. And everyone was like, no, they'll stop when they're done. I'm like, no. I need the ounces. Like, I needed to know that information so bad that I would pump during the day and breastfeed at night. And Chris was like, are you supposed to be doing both things? And I'm like, I don't know. But my mental state is fine. So let's move forward.
That's half the battle for sure.
Yeah.
And I love that, just keeping them fed. Like, I always bring, I make little chocolate peanut butter protein balls. That's what I always bring a new mom when we meet the baby, is a whole bucket of them. And I'm like, just put them in your fridge, pop them, because you get so hungry and tired and weak because you're burning through all those calories and you're not having time to feed yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, everyone's breastfeeding journey, there's no one right way to do it. Would you agree with that, Callie?
Totally. Yeah. Every baby and mother dyad is so vastly different. Even if, like you said earlier, like the breastfeeding book, those are really great. And I think it can prepare you for a lot of like really technical things you might not know, like engorgement or mastitis, or like things you've never even heard of.
But then, like,
when you're like boots on the ground in there is when you can kind of rely on those tools that you like read about or talked about. But yes, every baby and mother is so very different.
Yeah. Well, and I remember when I was in the throes of it, of course, I knew other moms that were also in the throes of it. And that's, when you learn about cluster feeding, and, just because baby feeds and then is whiny doesn't mean they didn't get enough. And you know what I mean? And I know Amanda wanted to measure her milk, but I also remember like that's not necessarily an indication of, how much baby's getting, and, pumping versus being on the breast. And I did both. I think we have to take the stigma around it that if you do want to breastfeed, there's nothing wrong with breastfeeding and also having to do formula. We had to do both for a while. I figured out what I was doing. I would pump because, right, it's supply and demand. I don't know how technical we want to get on here, but it is supply and demand, right? So if baby's not feeding or you're not pumping, then your body's like, oh, you must not need the milk, so we're not going to produce it. Is that correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
totally.
I would get up and I couldn't nurse her because we still hadn't figured it out yet, but I knew I needed to pump. So I would get up and pump in the middle of the night. Steve would get up and feed her a bottle. Sometimes I didn't have any pumped milk to feed her, so he would have to feed her formula, but I just knew I had to keep pumping to keep my body producing. But it's just so different for everyone. It's not going to look the way you think it's going to look. And one thing that Steve said and that we're huge proponents of and share with our other friends is like, look, you have to do what's best for you. So like if mom is going frantic trying to breastfeed, maybe breastfeeding isn't for her because it's too emotionally draining and it's too stressful, right? So what would you say though for those moms who they do feel judged and they do feel guilt, whether it's breastfeeding or formula, or what would you say if you have any, there's just so much judgment around it nowadays.
There's a lot of judgment. I feel like, I always try to tell my moms, I want you to breastfeed if you want to breastfeed. I don't care how you feed your baby. If you want to breastfeed and it's painful or you're having issues, that's what I'm here for. I don't care what you're feeding that baby.
Yeah.
And so I always try to start out my consults with like, what are your goals? And sometimes moms will say like, I don't know, I kind of want to breastfeed, or formula feeding's been really good, which leads me to your next thing is like, how does breastfeeding make you feel? If it's not serving you, then like, let's let it go. This isn't a place where like we pass judgment. I just want to support you in feeding your baby, however that looks for you. I would say one major thing I try to recommend to my moms that tend to be like a little bit anxious about which way to go is to get off social media, or stop following those moms that you started following during pregnancy, because most moms on social media that are throwing off their top and they're just breastfeeding all the kids and all this stuff. Well, that's great. That's not what everyday life looks like for them. That's one small snapshot of their life. Or the mom that has
decided to post.
deep freezers. Yeah, right. Or she has like deep freezers full of milk for the whole neighborhood. That mom's goals are vastly different than yours. Like that pumping mom is not probably breastfeeding that baby because her milk supply is so high, baby's not going to latch and be comfortable. So it really depends like what your goals are. So I would say stop following the people you followed during pregnancy that you thought were really inspiring to you. Let's take that pressure off the table. That's a really big one. And I do get a lot of texts in the middle of the night saying, should I be pumping? One of my friends is pumping and breastfeeding. Like every dyad is so different. Let's focus back on what your goals are. And if your goals pivot and change during your journey, that's totally fine too. We can do the same. But if you kind of keep your eye on the prize, write your goal in a sticky note, put it on the mirror. I'm going to breastfeed for 6 months, or I'm going to try to breastfeed for 6 weeks, or whatever. And then that kind of keeps you in tune with yourself, your goal, your family, and out of the loop on social media for sure.
I love that.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, because comparison, comparison is it can be so detrimental nowadays.
On anything.
Well, yeah, on anything. Yeah. But and that's one reason too. I don't talk about it much anymore because my daughter's 12. But when I was in it, I was so open with other moms to let them know, like, listen, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was just stubborn and decided I was going to try and see if I could make it for 6 months. But in the beginning, oh my gosh, Amanda, I could not breastfeed and luckily I was able to take 6 months off of work. If I wasn't able to do that and I had to go back to work,
oh my gosh,
it never would have happened. So
that's a whole nother topic of a podcast of it's ridiculous because you try to do this while also going back to work.
Right. But luckily I was home, but I had to, for the first several weeks, I had to have like in the bedroom, lights had to be dim. I had the pillows, I had the nipple covers, and it was hard work. I was constantly like fixing her lip, fixing her tongue, latching. And it was a lot of work, and I could not do that in public for like the life of me. Forget that, because I needed so many accoutrements and I had to be calm. And it was a lot of work. And so I think other moms need to know that like, that's normal too. Yeah. And it's okay if you want to push through that and try, and it's okay you don't want to either. But, you know, I pushed through, and then Amanda, lots of my friends like to tease me, but I ended up breastfeeding my daughter until she was 5. And that was never
Well, but also here's what we thought was so fascinating is because we were doing a lot of traveling together. So she would leave the little one. And then we'd kind of be curious of when she went back and then like, can you still breastfeed? Or did you try it?
I traveled all the time.
Like, nope, breastfed her again. We're like, oh my gosh.
I mean, I started traveling when she was 6 months old. So I have pumped in some of the weirdest places and brought milk back from some of the weirdest places.
Well, and I'll say this. So this is actually, you know, I tell people this story a lot. Speaking of traveling, that's the second part of the story. But I think it takes off. Oh, I'm trying to say, like there was a lot, like I said, there's a lot of pressure. So like when I couldn't breastfeed Rue, I felt like a complete failure.
And she was your first too. Like I think when it's your first baby, there's even more pressure and judgment and, you know.
And I didn't know, and she was perfectly healthy baby. So like there was no other stressors, but I just felt like a complete failure and I couldn't do it. And I wanted to breastfeed. I wanted her to have breast milk so badly, but I couldn't produce it. And it was awful. I actually have one picture of me trying to breastfeed her, and it's still framed in my room because that moment meant so much to me. Well, my sister, who breastfed her daughter for 4 years, was Mother Earth at the time. And my sister shipped her milk down from Dallas because she was one of those with all her freezer. And I remember asking my husband, I was like, I don't know, do you care if we use somebody else's milk? And he was like, well, if it's best for the baby, I like, that's fine. But then we'd laugh because I'd be like, hey, can you get a bottle? And Chris would be like, you go grab it. I was like, it's not like my sister rubbed her boobs on it. He was like, and then with Roger, I was traveling a lot, and another girlfriend and she and I were both pumping, and she had like a longer commute back or something that she's like, yeah, the milk's not going to make it. I'm just going to have to throw it all away. And I was like, no, I'll take it home.
Yes.
And she fed Roger. Like it doesn't, there are places where you can get breast milk if that's something that you want to do. And it's not in your mental state to do it. Like I said, it just wasn't in my mental state to do it for Rue. But with the boys, I had no problem. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do tend to make more milk with your subsequent pregnancies, which I feel like is a bonus for some moms that are like you, that like, I have one the other day. She called me and she was like, I don't even know if I should hire you. I've been debating calling because I struggled so hard to breastfeed my first and it just never came together. And now I'm pregnant again and it's another boy. And do you think it's even worth it? And I'm like, our babies are so different. Our bodies have already been here and done that. Typically we'll produce higher amount of milk with subsequent pregnancies. And so now she, just knowing that her supply might not be an issue this time has empowered her to like book a prenatal and learn all the things. And it's just sometimes a little bit of info, you know, goes a long way for sure.
Yeah, and we actually have a mutual friend that didn't breastfeed her first 3 and now is doing it with her 4th, like a rock star.
Yeah.
And like but that was just a personal choice. And now she's doing great. Like it's all different for each different pregnancy, each different person. I feel like you have to take out any of the past misconceptions that you had, even though it's still your body. It could be completely different with the next kid.
That's true. And I feel like situation. 90% of breastfeeding, the success of breastfeeding depends on the mother's desire to do it. Like if you have the will to breastfeed, we can get you there. If you don't care about it and it's not serving you and you have 6 other kids to deal with, let's not do it. Let's like serve your mental health, because the most important thing is that you have a strong, healthy, happy mom for those kids, whether it's 6 or 1 or whatever. So taking off like the pressure to breastfeed, I feel like the fact that we even have to have that conversation is silly to me. It's like, it's your baby. When you leave that hospital, it's just you guys. So you can do whatever you want with that baby.
Yeah.
But I think that alone is also the fear, because with all the prep work, all the other moms and grandmas and everyone's giving you all this information and you're like, yes, everyone's going to help me. And then you go home and it's just you two. You're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
But it's such a good point, though, just like the mom's kind of mindset, because when people ask me how I was, and I still say it was the hardest, most awesome thing I've ever done. But I certainly couldn't have done it without a lactation consultant. So if anyone is ever hesitating to hire you, I am telling all of our listeners, do not hesitate. They are rock stars. They are angels of the night. You will never regret it if breastfeeding is something you want to try and figure out.
And Callie, thank you so much for being here. This is one of those topics that can feel isolating, and you just made it feel supportive and empowering. And it's all up to the mom. And I love that you're just cheering on the mom the whole way. I think you have an incredible business that it's just inspiring.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Yay. And if you're listening and you're in the newborn trenches, we see you. Whether you're breastfeeding, you're pumping, you're formula feeding, you're doing a little bit of everything. You're doing an incredible job. But I have to ask real quick, Callie, how can moms find you and connect with Mooch Lactation if they need support?
Callie is in the Austin area, just in case you know.
Yes, I'm in the Austin area. We do offer virtual consults, so we can see you near and far. The best way to reach me is the website, so moochlactationco.com. My text is on there, email is on there. It can be a really great resource too underneath our frequently asked questions page. I have a lot of moms that'll text me late at night and say, I read all these articles about how to put on the nipple shield, and now I feel better, or I'm still struggling. Can you come? So the frequently asked questions page can be really good, but the website's the best part. So moochlactationco.com.
Well, we will make sure that is in our show notes. And I have to say, you said nipple shield, and I have to share, I can remember the day we figured out nursing without one. Steve was at work, and I'm like fist pumping, and I wanted a high five, and I'm like clapping. I was so proud of myself, and nobody was there to clap back and high five.
I forget. What is a nipple shield?
It's like a little silicone tool that you can put over your natural nipple to elongate it so that your nipple reaches all the way to baby's suckle reflex on the roof of their mouth. So instead of chomping and drawing your nipple, they actually suckle on the nipple.
I never had one of those. That sounds awesome.
That's because you needed Callie when you had Rue. I
did. I was just going alone with the boys. I didn't get to meet Callie till Roger was in Kinderbridge. Dang it.
Every time you're like, I just couldn't figure it out with Rue. I'm like, you needed a lactation consultant.
It's true. I probably did.
I know, Callie, you were thinking the same thing.
Callie's like, I would have fixed it. Don't worry.
Not always.
Oh my gosh. Well, so thank you again for coming. We're so glad to have you as part of our Bronze Medal Mom community. And remember, Bronze Medal Moms, we're not perfect. We're not Pinterest. We are just doing our best.
Yes. And sometimes that means we just survived the 2 a.m. feeding.
Thanks, Callie. See y'all next week.
Thanks, Callie.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to our moms on Bronze Medal Moms. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. See you soon.
Hair up high, coffee in my hand, baby on my hip, still making a stand. Oh yeah. Burnt toast breakfast, cartoons way too loud, mascara smudge, but I'm still proud. Carpool chaos, homework on the floor. I'm tying tiny shoes like I'm heading on tour. Sometimes I'm raging in the minivan line, sometimes I'm crying in the bathroom fine, but I lace up my heart like leather and chrome. Every crazy day I bring it home. I'm momming like a rock star, doing dishes like a dive bar. Yeah, the crowd is free, but they scream for me. Whoa. I'm momming like a rock star, perfect mess in a big heart. Give it all I've got, even when I'm falling apart. I'm momming like a rock star. Laundry mountain staring me down, glitter in my hair like a rhinestone crown. Science fair meltdown, costumes all wrong, so we hot glue glory and we sing our song. Sometimes I'm praying at the kitchen sink, sometimes it's cereal and frozen drinks, but I show up on time for every small best, yeah.